Millions of years ago, a source of immense heat formed in the Earth's mantle, a hotspot. A burning, bubbling, scorching hot mass, the hotspot was estimated at 37 miles long, 18 miles wide, and 3 to 7 miles deep. 640,000 years ago, this hotspot caused a large plume of magma, a form of melted rock, to jut out into the Earth's crust, creating a sort of enormous pimple. When the pressure on the inside of the crust was too great, a massive supervolcanic explosion with the power of over 2,500 Mount St. Helens expelled over 240 cubic miles of rock, ash, and dust from the ground. With nothing to hold up the land underneath, the crust collapsed, creating a caldera. The Yellowstone caldera is 35 miles wide and 50 miles long, the largest in the world. Two similar explosions happened 1.3 million years ago and 2.1 million years ago with the power of 700 and 6,000 Mount St. Helens, respectively. Native Americans have lived in the park for over 11,000 years. White explorers first crossed through present-day Montana in 1805 during the Lewis and Clark expedition and encountered the Nez Perce, Crow, and Shoshone tribes. They heard of the Yellowstone region to the south but did not investigate. When John Coulter split off of the Lewis and Clark expedition in 1806 to join a group of fur trappers, he passed through what would become a portion of the park in 1807, observing at least one geothermal area near Tower Falls. Coulter explained a place of fire and brimstone that most people dismissed, nicknaming the place Coulter Hell. 40 years of the same stories from other mountain men and fur trappers were also believed to be myths. Organized expedition did not start until the late 1860s. Ferdinand V. Hayden and the Hayden Geological Survey of 1871 compiled a comprehensive report with pictures, paintings, and maps to convince the U.S. Congress to withdraw this region from public auction. On March 1, 1872, President Ulysses S. Grant signed the Act of Dedication, a law that created Yellowstone National Park. 50 miles to the south of Yellowstone is a mountain range unlike any other. Grand Teton National Park was first explored by a branch of the Hayden Geological Survey, called the Snake River Division, led by James Stevenson. The first settlers came to Jackson Hole Valley to the east of the range in 1884. By 1890, Jackson Hole had an estimated permanent population of 60. Ranching increased significantly from 1900 to 1920. But a series of agricultural-related economic downturns in the early 1920s left many ranchers destitute. Beginning in the 1920s, the automobile provided faster and easier access to areas of natural beauty and old military roads into Jackson Hole over Teton and Tagawati passes, and they were improved to accommodate the increased vehicle traffic. In response to increased tourism, dude ranches were established, some new and some from existing cattle ranches, so urbanized travelers could experience the life of a cattleman. The park was originally going to be an expansion of Yellowstone, an already very well-established park, but this was shot down by the Jackson Hole residents who were more in favor of a new, separate national park. After congressional approval, President Calvin Coolidge signed the executive order establishing the 9,600-acre Grand Teton National Park on February 26, 1929. The Grand Tetons were created by the Teton Fault Line, a line on the convergence of the Pacific and North American tectonic plates. The Pacific plate slipped under the North American plate, creating a western plateau. When the Teton Fault slipped 10 million years ago, the mountain range was created with little to no foothills. Further glacial action carved the baseline of the Tetons to be as flat as it is seen today. The lack of foothills is what has gained the magnificent and one-of-a-kind mountain range, which looms 8,000 feet above Jackson Hole, the fame it has received both today and in the past. Yellowstone National Park is home to many extremely unique, rare, and indescribable natural wonders of the world, waterfalls being a great opener to the set list. Gibbon Falls sends water of the Gibbon River on an 84-foot plunge. This fall is located 4.7 miles upstream from the conjoining of the Firehole and Gibbon rivers and acts as a natural fish migration barrier. The Washburn and Hayden parties found this in fall of 1870 with no fish in the river above the falls, and 20 years later, rainbow trout were introduced into the headwaters of the fall in 1890. Gibbon Falls' sister, Little Gibbon Falls, is one of the most famous hidden hikes in Yellowstone. Located 0.6 miles from the road, the secluded waterfall sends water on a dramatic 25-foot fall. Moving to some much larger falls, Upper Yellowstone Falls is home to a 109-foot drop. The brink of the upper falls marks the conjunction of hard rhyolite lava flows and weaker glassy lava that has been more heavily eroded, leading volcanologists to suspect they are not lava flows at all, but rather rheomorphic onigobrites. These are densely welded pyroclastic flows of pumice and ash, which were once thick and hot enough to flow downslope and obliterate primary pyroclastic structures. They suggest that the original pumice and ash fragments have been streaked out like toffee strands so that the pyroclastic nature of the flow becomes unrecognizable. Lower Yellowstone Falls is the largest waterfall in Yellowstone. This 308-foot drop cascading down from the 59,000-year-old lava flow is the largest volume water flow in the Rocky Mountains. The impressive height of this waterfall was long debated before modern technology, with one newspaper article in 1867 placing the height at thousands of feet. William Clark wrote in his journal that he had heard of the fall, but didn't believe the stories. The first recorded sighting of this fall was in 1824 by French fur trapper Baptiste Ducharme. Firehole Falls is a 40-foot cascade in the 80-degree Firehole River. This fall is a natural fish migration blockage that was solved in 1889 when brook trout were introduced into the upper river, very much like Gibbon Falls. Early trappers named the river as such due to the steam it seems to radiate, making it look like it is on fire. Located 1,000 yards away from the convergence of Tower Stream and the Yellowstone River, stands the 132-foot Tower Falls. The fall was named by Samuel Hauser, a member of the Washburn Party. Wraith Falls is a 79-foot fall with the stature of a giant slide due to the flat face of the falls, a product of relatively low drainage of the Lupine Creek feeding it. The fall was named so by members of the Arnold Hogg expeditions in 1885 who apparently thought the falls looked like a ghost or phantom as it shimmered in the sunlight. Undine Falls is the point where Lava Creek spills over the cliff face of a basalt lava flow that was emplaced about 700,000 years ago. The total fall height is 60 feet, descending in 3 landings. Originally called East Gardner Falls, Undine received its present name in 1885 from geologist Arnold Hogg. Undine was named for wise, usually female water spirits from German mythology who lived around waterfalls and who could gain souls by marrying mortal men. Yellowstone National Park is home to over 10,000 hydro and geothermal features. Of these, more than 500 are geysers, over half of all the geysers on planet Earth. The large magnitude of these numbers is due to the magma that is only miles from the surface, feeding these features and creating fantastic and mesmerizing views in the park. There are 4 types of thermal features. First, geysers are a hot spring in which water intermittently boils, sending a tall column of water and steam into the air. Old Faithful is arguably the most popular geyser in Yellowstone. This geyser was named by the Washburn expedition of 1870 after they had traveled down the Firehole River. Old Faithful was the first named geyser due to the uncanny consistency in which the geyser erupts. Despite popular belief, the geyser erupts every 91 minutes, not every hour on the hour. In the 1960s, the interval between eruptions was 66 minutes, and park officials believe this change has been due to earthquake activity over the years affecting the underground water system feeding the geyser. Another riveting site is Castle Geyser. Castle Geyser erupts every 9 to 11 hours, and the geyser is estimated to be between 5,000 and 15,000 years old due to the 12-foot cone it has developed around the opening. The max height is around 90 feet, and the eruptions consist of a 20-minute water phase followed by a 40-minute noisy steam phase. After all of the short erupting geysers, Fountain Geyser seems to be in it for the marathon. Fountain Geyser is the dominant member of a group of geysers at the Fountain Paint Pots thermal area. This is a fountain-type geyser that erupts jets ranging in height from up to 80 feet or more, with most eruptions containing at least a few bursts that reach 40 to 50 feet. Durations of eruptions are typically about 30 minutes. Occasionally, Fountain departs from its usual behavior and enters so-called wild phase eruption, during which the height is much reduced, but the duration can be as long as 2 weeks. Fumaroles, or steam vents, are hot springs with a lot of heat but so little water that it all boils away before reaching the surface. creating lots of steam and hissing noises as it is released. Mud pot is a great example of a fumarole, and it is almost consistently hissing and bubbling steam. Hot springs are essentially just water heated by underground magma that is much hotter than the surrounding air. Home to many microorganisms called thermophilics, living in these extreme conditions, including bacteria in the genera Sulfobus, Hydrogenobacter, and Thermocrinus. Thermophilic algae in the hot springs are most abundant at temperatures of 131 degrees or below. These thermophiles create the massive array of colors seen in the pools, with red being 131 degrees, orange being 149 degrees, yellow being 165 degrees, and blue and green being 189 degrees or above. Nesting on a large buildup of tavertine, a type of limestone that forms around mineral spring deposits, Pallet Spring sports vivid colors as well as a flat-faced waterfall expelling sulfur-laced water. Mound Spring is very similar to Pallet Spring, but much larger, with the face formed by the water flowing down the spring at the base moving to the west of the park. The collection of artist paint pots are very colorful, named as such due to the resemblance to that of, well, an artist paint pot after the brush is dipped prior to painting. There are many dead springs in Yellowstone, springs that have stopped flowing as they move further down the slope. These springs have little color due to the lack of thermophiles, as there is no water flowing with the minerals that they need to live and thrive. Grand Prismatic Spring is the largest spring in North America and the third in the world. The spring is 370 feet in diameter, 160 feet deep, and discharges 560 gallons of water per minute, the equivalent of one bathtub every 10 seconds. Grand Prismatic Spring was noted by geologists working in the Hayden Geological Survey and was named for them by its striking coloration. Mud pots are hissing, bubbling, mud-throwing geothermal features. Surface water collects in a shallow, impermeable depression that has no direct connection to an underground water source. Thermal water beneath the depression causes steam to rise through the ground, heating the collected surface water. Hydrogen sulfide gas gives the mud pots their characteristic odor of rotting eggs. Some microorganisms use the hydrogen sulfide for energy. The microbes help convert the gas to sulfuric acid, which breaks down rock into clay. The result is a gooey mixture through which the gases gurgle and bubble. Some of the bubbles can throw mud up to 15 feet in the air. Fire has been a key factor in shaping the ecology of the greater Yellowstone ecosystem. Yellowstone's fire season typically lasts from July to the end of September. The landscape has been shaped by naturally caused fire for 14,000 years. Lightning may ignite dozens of forest fires during a single summer, but most of them go out naturally after burning less than half an acre. Others torch isolated or small groups of trees, become smoldering ground fires, and eventually go out on their own. On rare occasions, wind-driven fires have burned through large areas of the forest, as in 1988, when multiple fires crossed more than 1 million acres in Yellowstone and on surrounding federal lands despite massive efforts to extinguish them. Since 1931, when fire statistics began to be kept more methodically, 1,636 fires have been lightning-caused and 740 were considered human-caused, including those caused by power lines. Yellowstone National Park is home to over 1,300 native plant species, some of which have evolved adaptations so they can survive these fires and, in some cases, flourish after periodic infernos. Fire promotes habitat diversity by removing the forest overstory, allowing different plant communities to become established and preventing trees from becoming established in grasslands. Fire increases the rate that nutrients become available to plants by rapidly releasing them from wood and forest litter, and by hastening the weathering of soil minerals. Yellowstone is home to over 300 unique species of animals, from elk and bison to fish and birds. This is the largest concentration of animals in the lower 48 states. Bison are the largest grazing animals of Yellowstone, with males weighing upwards of 1,800 pounds, while females average 1,300. A bison's average lifespan is 20 to 25 years in the wild. Yellowstone is the only place in the lower 48 states where a population of wild American bison has persisted since prehistoric times, although fewer than 50 native bison remained there in 1902. Fearing extinction, the park imported 21 bison from 2 privately owned herds as foundation stock for a bison ranching project that spanned 50 years at the Lamar Buffalo Ranch in Yellowstone's Lamar Valley. Bison were trapped and herds periodically reduced until 1967, when only 397 bison were counted park-wide. All bison herd reduction activities were phased out after 1966, again allowing natural ecological processes to determine bison numbers and distribution. Presently, the park's bison population is estimated at about 4,000 bison. Elk are the most abundant large animal in Yellowstone, with over 30,000 animals in the park during the summer. When mature, a bull elk's rack can weigh over 30 pounds and can have 6 to 8 tines on each side. Yellowstone National Park was established in 1872 when the market hunting of all large grazing animals was rampant. Not until after 1886, when the United States Army was called in to protect the park and wildlife slaughter was brought under control, did the large animals increase in number. Yellowstone is home to over 50 species of small animals. The winged ground squirrel is among the most encountered. These squirrels mate underground, and the gestation period lasts 23 to 26 days with the average litter of 5 young. They can live up to 7 years in the wild. The golden-mantled ground squirrel is another species, getting its name from the tawny to reddish mantle across the shoulders of the squirrel. This species also averages a litter of 5 young. Pronghorn are the fastest North American land animal, being able to reach speeds of up to 60 miles per hour. Up to 5,000 of these animals live in Yellowstone. Wolves were native to Yellowstone when the park was founded in 1872. Between 1914 and 1926, over 136 wolves were killed in the park. In the 1940s, wolf packs were rarely reported, and by 1970, scientists found no evidence of a wolf population in Yellowstone. In 1995, Canadian gray wolves were reintroduced into Yellowstone, a move that returned wolves to the land they once ruled. Today, 13 packs live inside of Yellowstone Park. Yellowstone is home to over 718 grizzly bears and over 550 black bears. Bears were once commonly observed among roadsides and within developed areas of Yellowstone National Park, attracted to these areas by the availability of human food in the form of handouts and unsecured camp groceries and garbage. Although having bears readily visible along roadsides and with developed areas was very popular with park visitors, an average of 48 bear-caused human injuries occurred each year from 1930 through 1969. Due to the large amount of bears relying on people and causing harm to visitors, over 100 bears were euthanized. Over the next several decades, the bears learned to hunt and forage for themselves from non-human food sources, and their population slowly grew. Moose are the largest member of the deer family, and there are an estimated 200 in Yellowstone Park. In 1980, a total of 1,000 moose were suggested, but that number has been rapidly declining as the calf crop was slashed after the fires of 1988, as moose depend on mature fir forests for winter survival. The classic moose antler is a palmate shape with several tines. At 2 years old, almost all males have well-developed palms on their antlers, and the size of the palms, number of tines, and antler spread continues to grow each year. Males can reach up to 1,000 pounds, with females weighing in around 900. 318 species of birds have been documented in Yellowstone Park since 1872. Yellowstone is not a very popular habitat for birds due to the high altitude and frigid winters, but the extensive rivers, lakes, and wetlands are summer homes to many waterfowl, while forests and meadows are home to many different warbler, sparrow, and passerine bird species. Yellowstone National Park is a great and wondrous land filled with many astounding and surprising characteristics. Its beauty and power dominate the landscape, abundant in wildlife, nature, and geothermal features found nowhere else on the planet. This caldera of fire, brimstone, and ice.